Welcome to the woods. Welcome to the cabin. It's raining again, quite hard. So today's little video will be done inside in the warm with a cup of coffee. Now in the past I've told a few stories. Usually on a Sunday I used to do a Sunday story. I've told the tale of when the front door of my pub was stolen. I've told the story about when I was a young teenager being caught by my girlfriend's dad when I shouldn't have been there during the day. I've told stories about me and my little brother and hanging him off the clothesline when we were kids. And I'm not sure I've told the story I'm about to tell you. And there's a moral at the end of it, as there usually is. It's one I've told a few times before. My family's probably sick and tired of hearing it. It's a favourite of a couple of friends of mine. So sit back, get comfortable, grab yourself a cuppa, and I'll tell you a story. When I was younger, back in the mists of time, I moved into a house with my girlfriend and 2 kids. It was a second house we got. A nice place. I say a nice place. It was okay, but it needed some work doing on it. And I'd done a bit in the garden, and I'd decorated the front room. And in the kitchen there was it was tiled, but there was one wall, kind of where the bin went up against this wall, that I wanted to tile. And I'd never done any tiling. I kind of thought I knew how it went. It didn't seem that difficult. And I only wanted normal white tiles, something I could wipe down. About 3 foot wide and up to about sort of 5 foot. So not the right way to the ceiling. A small piece of wall. So I kind of measured it. And I phoned me dad and I said, have you got any tiles before I go off and buy any? And he said, I haven't got any tiles, but I got some adhesive. So I said, okay. I went off. I bought a couple of boxes of white tiles. I went round to my father's house. And we had a cup of coffee and we had a chat. And I told him what I was going to do. And he said that, if you need a hand, give us a shout and I'll come over. And I was kind of, no, this is something I want to do. I've never done it before, but I'm pretty sure I can handle a bit of tiling, which is odd because my DIY skills left a lot to be desired. They've got better over the years. They kind of had to. But anyway, he said, if you go in the shed, on the shelf is a brand new tub of tile adhesive. I said, great. So I finished my coffee, I went out to the shed, opened the door, walked in, and on the bench, right in front of me, was a tub of tile adhesive. So I grabbed it, walked back through the house, thanked him, and went on my merry way. Off I went back home with a couple of boxes of tiles and the tile adhesive. Now my missus had taken the kids out for the day. I think she was visiting her mother. So it gave me the whole day. And this was the morning. And I figured I'd have it done by lunchtime. So I prepped the wall. I'd give it a clean and made sure there wasn't any dirt on it. And I got the tiles out and I sort of looked at them, and I had some of those little spacers, you know, little cross things that go between the tiles. Kind of got that sussed. And I opened the tile adhesive and it looked odd. It was, well, I'd never tiled before. I didn't know what it was meant to look like. I thought it was going to be like a thick white, like a polyfiller type stuff, but this was kind of translucent. And a bit thinner than I thought it would be, but there you go. It was a brand new tub. I'd opened it, and I had a spatula, and I'd also worked out. I'd read one of these information sheets, which is before the internet, mind, that said don't start at the bottom of the wall. Sort of draw a line a little bit further up, about a tile's width up. Get that line dead straight, start there, and then if you do need to cut any tiles, you'll be cutting them on the bottom row, which is right down near the floor and is fairly well hidden. So I figured that was a good idea. So I draw my line on the wall, and I got a tile, and I put this adhesive on, and I put the tile on the wall, on the line, and I sort of held it there and let go, and very slowly the tile slid down the wall. So I was a bit perturbed and I thought maybe I didn't have enough adhesive on, so I put a bit more on and I held the tile in place and I let go, and very slowly it slid down the wall, which is annoying. So I slid it back up and I held it in place, and I held it for about 10 seconds, and gently I let go, and it kind of stayed where it was. So I thought, okay. So I got the next tile and I put the adhesive on it, and I put that tile next to it with a couple of little spacers in it next to it on the line, and I let go and slowly it slid down the wall. So I moved it back up and I held it in place, and as I was holding it in place, the first one slowly slid down the wall, and now I'm getting annoyed, and I'm thinking to myself, I've heard that tiling can be harder than it looks, and never really paid any attention. Maybe this was going to be one of those jobs that actually is a lot harder than it seems. So I decided to ignore that fact sheet that I've read, and I would start at the bottom on the skirting board. And if I had to level the tiles up or whatever, if it wasn't dead straight, then I'd cross that bridge when I came to it. So I started at the bottom and I got another tile and put it on top of the first one, and it couldn't slide down because it had something to fall against. And I got 3 tiles up, and that was pretty good, and I was happy with that. And I thought I'd start the row next to it, and I did the first one and got the second one, and then I got the third one, and I turned around to get another tile, and then the top one of the first row fell off and broke on the floor. And I'm okay, alright. So I replaced the tile and I held it in place, and it seemed to be staying. I got another tile and started the third row, and I got 3 up. So I've now got about, how much is that, 6 and 9 tiles on, which is good. It's taken me about an hour and a half, but I've got 9 tiles. So I start the 4th row, and 2 tiles, the 2 top ones on the first 2 fall off and break on the floor. And I'm just doing my head in now. Something isn't working. Something I need. Maybe the wall's damp. I'm thinking it's an outside wall. Maybe that's affecting it. I can't figure out what's wrong. If I can just get the tiles on there to stay, then maybe they'll bond. So I open the cupboards and I get out tins of beans and spaghetti and all that other junk that's in there, and I put those in front of the tiles and push them up against the wall to hold the tiles against the wall. and I've got boxes of shredded wheat out and Tupperware boxes leaning against the wall to hold these tiles in place. And as I get further up the wall, I've gone outside and I've got pieces of wood to lean against the tiles to stop them falling off. And about 3 hours into this job, I've got an ironing board leaning against the wall, towers of tinned food, boxes of kids' toys and lumps of wood holding these tiles against the wall. And I go back to that first row and I take away a piece of wood and 3 or 4 tins at the bottom, and it seems to be stuck. I don't want to push my luck. I'm not going to try moving them, but I kind of tap them and they're on. They're stuck on the wall. And now I'm thinking, well, maybe if they stay on there for a 24-hour period and I can then grout, maybe the grout holds it in further. I don't know. I've never done this before. So I continue to tile, and I'm holding tiles on with one hand and a knee holding another one and an ironing board, and I'm kind of stretched out, weird, holding tiles on. I'm only one step away from holding them on with my head, desperately trying to complete a job because I wanted to get it done and I wanted to achieve something I'd not done before. And I was angry and I was frustrated and I was using everything I could to get these tiles to stay on the wall. And my missus had come home and listened outside the kitchen door to the shouting and swearing and screaming and mild sobbing, and had decided that maybe she wouldn't come in to lend a hand, that she would look after the kids, which was a good idea. And eventually it was tea time, and she'd come in to grab them something to eat and seen the floor littered with broken tiles and me sweating profusely and ironing boards and lumps of wood from the shed and tinned beans holding tiles in place. And she didn't say anything. She fed the children in the lounge and put them to bed. And I continued into the early evening, desperately trying to tile a 3-foot by 4-foot piece of wall. And I managed it. By 9 o'clock at night, I'd got the whole wall tiled. And with the aid of nearly every piece of wood, tin of beans, box of shreddies, children's toys, ironing boards and any other implement I could find in order to press against those tiles, they were on the wall. And that to me was a success. So I had a cup of coffee. I tried to slow my heart rate, to calm down, hoping that they would stick. And after about half an hour, I removed the ironing board and the tins of beans and the planks of wood and the battens, in the hope that they would stay on the wall. And they did. So I tidied up a bit. And I had an early night. And I went to bed. And I got into bed. And as I lay there, I heard as one of the tiles fell off the wall. And I lay in bed, listening to every single tile fall off the wall and break. And in the morning, I walked into the kitchen and swept up the mess and admitted defeat. And I took a couple of the spare tiles and the adhesive, and I thought I'd go and talk to my dad and tell him that it didn't work and the tiles fell off and maybe I'd done something wrong. So I drove round to see him, and I walked into the front room and I said, I don't know what I've done wrong, but I put all these tiles up. It took ages to get them to stick on the wall, literally having things propped up against them to get them to dry there. But I managed to do it, and then during the night every single tile fell off. And I showed him the tiles, and I said, this adhesive really, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't seem up to the job. And it was at that point that I noticed the look on my father's face as he looked at the tub of adhesive. And I saw him looking, and I read it again, and it was tile adhesive. And I looked at my father, and my father looked at me, and he said, where did you get the tile adhesive? And I said, you told me it was in the shed. I went to the shed, it was there on the bench. And he said, no, I told you it was in the shed on the shelf. That is an empty tub of tile adhesive that I used to mix up some wallpaper paste last week. I'd spent nearly 10 hours tiling a kitchen wall with wallpaper paste. Now, to my credit, I did manage to get the wall tiled. To my shame, I really should have noticed that it was wallpaper paste and not tile adhesive. The laughter of my father often haunts me, and I wasn't sure at the time if I was going to throw the wallpaper paste over his head or laugh with him. It was one of those things. And I dare say, during your life, you've made mistakes. Maybe not as retarded as trying to tile a wall with wallpaper paste, but I was young, and it was something I'd never done, and there was no internet. So there's your story. And here's the thing. There's many morals that you could draw from that. But if we apply that to the situation we find ourselves in today in this country, and to things that I've said many times in the past, I've said that there's no political solution to the problems we face at the moment. And by that I mean there's no point in entering to party politics. That avenue has been well and truly blocked off. There are other things we can do. What we've tried in the past for nigh on 100 years is to gain power through that political system. And it's been much the same as trying to tile a wall with wallpaper paste. You will have a small amount of success, but slowly it will fall down. You can continue to try, like I did, and fool yourself that it's getting better. But it will end up with you sweeping up the debris. The system has in place every tool at its disposal to ensure its own survival. It will use them to deny you access to power. We can't keep using wallpaper paste to try and tile a wall. And if we can't do that, maybe we just try a different approach. Maybe we wood panel it and use screws. Whatever. Maybe we get proper adhesive. We use something that works. But it would be pointless to continue in the same vein. I hope you enjoyed the story. It makes a change from simply moaning about the situation we're in. But if the truth be known, it looks like things are changing. People are recognising that if we can't win one way, we need to try something else. Have a good day, you lot. Enjoy your evening, and I'll speak to you soon. There's always a way, just not with wallpaper paste.